And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Melody and this is my dad, and today we're reviewing Legendary Villains.
Villains! Now, this is Marvel Legendary came out almost 2 years ago now, and it's a game in which it's a deck building game in which you are building decks. It's a cooperative game working together to fight up against a master villain. This is the opposite. You are villains working together against a master good guy. I was kind of like, but then I found out that the games were compatible with one another. You could mix them up and use them. And I really do like Legendary, and Melody likes it a little. What?
I like it a lot, too.
Oh, I like it a lot. This game actually is a different box size. You'll see the box here. That's because in the middle of the box, when you open it up on the inside, is the play mat. It's actually not a board anymore. It's a play mat. And I'm really glad because we actually replaced the board from the original game with a play mat. I think play mats are far superior to boards just because of how easy they are to move around and set up. But anyhow, this is a complete game by itself, so we're going to show you that. But also, you can add it to the original game. Let me show you. A quick description if you've never played the original Legendary. What you're trying to do is you're trying to beat the big bad. In this case, I guess it's the big good. This is a commander. Here we have Nick Fury, who is the commander. Nick Fury has 4 cards that go with him, so these cards are placed underneath him. But you can see here that to defeat Nick Fury, you're going to need 9 attack to take him down. And you're going to need to do it 4 times, 1 for each card that's underneath him. He always leads Avengers. That means if Nick Fury's in the game, you will also be using the Avengers. And a command strike, there are command strikes in the deck, and this tells you what to do. So you'll pick a commander. In the box, there are 4 different commanders. There's Nick Fury, there's Doctor Strange, Professor X, and Odin. You also will pick a plot. There are multiple different plots. This one here is called Crush Hydra. And this tells you how many twists to put in the deck. The deck, this is the setup, and then it tells you what happens when each twist happens, and it tells you when good wins, which is not you, because you are not good, and what happens. So this one happens when there's 11 allies in the overrun pile, and also tells you some special rules. These combinations between the commander and the plot, defeating the commander is how you win. Keeping the plot from happening is how keeps you winning also. If the plot happens, you will lose. Some cards are placed here. These are bindings and these are bystanders. And then you're going to make an adversary deck. Now in this adversary deck, we're already going to put the Avengers because we're using Nick Fury. Then you'll also put different groups of people in the deck depending on who you want to play with. So for example, in this deck, we have the Marvel Knights, which includes Punisher. And we also have the Uncanny Avengers. There's Wolverine and Havoc. The Avengers were included because Nick Fury is in the game, so there's Iron Man. Then we have these backup adversaries. These are kind of like generic adversaries, so there's multiple man, and there's also police officers that you can use. Also in this deck, you're going to be adding some plot twists that will trigger the plot. You'll also be adding some command strikes, which will trigger the commander. You're then going to make a deck of allies. This is going to be made up of 5 different people, and all these numbers are going to change. I'm saying numbers here. The numbers of different things that go in the decks depends on the number of players in the game. But you'll notice there's a chart over here on the side that tells you how many things to put in. So in our game here, we have Loki and Magneto, and we have cards for Mystique, and cards for Venom, and Green Goblin. So each of these people comes with a deck of cards, and you'll shuffle them and place them here. And you're going to put 5 cards out here in the lair. There's also a deck of Madam Hydra cards, and there's also a deck of new recruits. Each person's going to get a starting deck that are made up of Hydra operatives and Hydra soldiers. Very generic cards. You'll get 12 of them. On your turn, before your turn, you'll draw 6 cards. But on your turn, before you play any cards, you'll turn over the top card of this adversary deck. If it's an adversary, and in this case, it happens to be Rogue, You place them on the bridge. If there's already an adversary on the bridge, then they will push them into the streets. And this will continue. Once someone's pushed from the sewers, they will overrun, which can cause bad things to happen to you. You'll lose people from the lair. Sometimes it causes you to other bad things happen. In this case, it might trigger things from the plot. If you turn over a bystander from this pile of adversaries, that bystander goes underneath the person here on the bridge, and they will capture them, and they will be able to, if you defeat that person, like let's say I defeat Electra, I'll get the bystander underneath her. If you turn over a command strike, then you look at the commander card and do whatever he says. In this case, you'll stack it next to Nick Fury, and he will demolish you. We'll talk about demolishing a little bit later. If you turn over a plot twist, you'll go to the plot card and do whatever that says. After you've done this, then you'll play all the cards from your hand. Now, at the beginning of the game, these cards are simply going to give you currency, money, that's the stars, or they're going to give you attack here, that's the little claw mark. The money will be used to buy from the allies here. Each ally has a cost. You can see here 4, 5, 4, 4, 3. You can always buy these Hydra cards over here on the side. They cost 3. And you can also buy the new recruits. They cost 2. If you have an attack, you can attack the people in the middle, provided you have enough to defeat them. And remember, your goal is to get enough attack so that you can attack the commander, Nick Fury in this case, who would be 9. Once you buy cards and attack cards, any cards that you've bought, plus all the cards from your hand, go in your discard pile. So, for example, if I bought this Father of Lies card, in the future, I'm going to have this card, which is a 3 attack, which is much better, and gives me a special ability. Maybe, for example, I can in the future have this card here, which gives me 2 money. And if I've played another card with a green fist, the size of the card is a green fist, if I play another one, this also lets me kidnap a bystander. So I take a bystander from the top of the deck and add it to my group. Any bystanders I capture or any adversaries I beat go to a special rewards pile. So this will continue until you either win or lose. Winning by defeating the commander 4 times, losing by whatever the plot says. If you win, each player will take all the cards that are in their pile, the cards they beat and captured, and whoever has the most points worth, there's a little tiny red number here that shows you how many points they're worth, is the main winner of the game. But you can also play it just straight cooperatively, and you all win jointly or you all lose jointly. Now we're going to talk about things that are different from this game from the original. First of all, like I said, they're completely compatible, and the rulebook has a whole thing that explains that in this game, villain equals hero and hero equals villain and different things. There's a new set of cards called bindings. These are similar to wounds from the original game, except if you don't do anything on your turn, you can get rid of 1 binding and give the rest to somebody else. So they're very similar to wounds, except you can put them in someone else's hand. And that's the theme of this set, is doing things to other players. You'll also notice here, this is the bystander deck next to it. Not every bystander is the same. If you kidnap this one, you draw an extra card. That's a computer hacker, an engineer. When you kidnap this one, there's a possibility you'll lose the top card of your deck. When you kidnap a rock star, you get another bystander. When you kidnap a public speaker, you get an extra money to spend. And most of the bystanders are typical normal bystanders. They're all Mary Jane, apparently. But there are the special ones involved. There are also 2 new decks of cards, and when you play the main game, these are different than the Shield agents, so you could play with all 3 of them if you want. Mana Hydra is 2, but she has the ability Dodge. Now, Dodge is on many of the cards in this game, and Dodge is an ability that basically says when you draw it, you can simply discard it and draw another card. So you can do that instead of using what's on the card. And that's a very useful ability because it gives you a lot of maneuverability with your deck. Sometimes you want a handful of fighting, you'll draw a card like this, you'll dodge, and hope to draw a card with fighting in its place. And then it's worth 2 money, but to play you have to discard a card from your hand. So it's not super good card, but the dodge makes it much better. The new Recruits is a really neat card. It gives you only 1 attack. And whenever you use it, you get rid of it. You return it to the new Recruit stack. But then you get to draw a card. So you can buy this for the future. It gives you +1 and then you draw a card. Very useful card, and a lot of the cards in this deck also refer to these new recruits. Now we're just going to look at some of the cool cards in the game. Here we have the Enchantress's most powerful card, where she can draw 3 cards. Great card, and then this goes underneath your draw pile, which can be good, although sometimes not quite so good. But either way, a really neat way to get a lot of things. She also has here where you can choose an adversary, and adversaries are what this game calls the villains. They're the good guys trying to stop you, and you can spend money and the fighting to defeat that hero, which is a pretty neat idea. You can even do the commander if you play 2 other cards. This is one of my favorite cards in the game. Bullseye is definitely one of my favorite people to play in this game. This perfect aim is a 5 attack, but it's +5 for each commander tactic in your victory pot, which means if you've defeated the commander in the past, this card now becomes a 10. If you've defeated him twice, it's a 15. Oh, it's such a great card. Fulfill the contract. This gives you points for each adversary from a certain group. So if you've beaten a whole bunch of people from one group, this gives you a lot of money. Bullseye also has cards like this that give you fighting. Sabretooth is in the game. Here everyone has to show things, and you can KO other people's cards from their deck, and it gives you +1 fighting. Again, this is the theme of this game, where you can be kind of annoying to the other players. Sabretooth also has the Stealthy Predator, which lets you look at the top 3 cards, keep 1, discard 1, put 1 back on top of the deck. Dr. Octopus is in the game. By the way, most of the villains in this game that you play with are either anti-X-Men or anti-Spider-Man. I believe most of the Sinister Six, and maybe, no, I don't know, I don't think they all are. I don't think Chameleon's in the set. But if you want to play guys who are against Spider-Man, you got this one. And this one here, you discard cards until your deck runs out, or until you've discarded 8 cards. And you get +1 for each one. It has that whole 8 vibe. This one I like too. It's a 4, but if it's the 8th card you've played this turn, it's +2 attack, so 6 attack. Here we have Electro. All adversaries in the commander get -1 this turn, which is a very useful, powerful card. You get +1 fighting for each card you discard this turn, which can be really handy if you have it set up so that you can discard cards. I like Electro. Craven, you get fighting equal to the cost of the highest cost ally in the lair. That is an amazing if you have a high cost ally in the lair. Really cool card Craven has here. Also, he can, if someone is in the city and there's no one next to them, he can hunt them down. A very thematic card. And I really like the theming of the card. Kingpin's in this game. Gives you 3 of those new recruit cards I showed you. And if he ever puts one back, if he has enough cards, you can put it in the bottom of his stack instead. Or here's +1 for each new recruit you played this turn. Kingpin is really good at utilizing these new recruits here. Ultron. It's hard for me sometimes to imagine Ultron as just an ordinary hero fighting the day, or ordinary villain. Ultron is extremely powerful, which can make other people discard their hand and draw back up, which could be annoying or could be good. And you get extra fighting for each ally that's discarded this way. Extremely powerful card if you have it in the right combination. Ultron has a lot of these cards that work together in combinations, especially with tech combinations. So it would be kind of fun to see Ultron and Iron Man in the same deck. I'm going to try that. Then we have the Juggernaut. Nothing can stop the Juggernaut. Unstoppable force. Each player KOs 2 cards from their hand, or each player KOs 2 cards from the discard pile. You get +1 for each card. That's great for you, and it's great to fight the bad guy. The other player is going to be a little annoyed at you when you do this sort of thing. Here's just a 4 attack where you discard a card. Mysterio, False Reflection. Mysterio, Shifting Decoy. Let me show you my favorite card in the whole deck, though, and that's Mystique's. This reveals the top card of the ally deck. You flip it over, and that's what you do. Whatever it is. It can be awesome, or it could be mediocre, but you know what? If I ever see this card in the lair, I'm going to buy this card instantly. Then we have all the other people that you're going to fight. It's always good to go up against the cops. Here's Professor X, the commander. There's the Spider Friends are a group. I mentioned X-Men First Class, Uncanny X-Men, the Defenders, Asgardian Warriors, and a S.H.I.E.L.D. Assault Squad, which would be really weird if you were S.H.I.E.L.D. fighting S.H.I.E.L.D., but then you could pretend you were in the Captain America movie. So like I said, it's all very thematic. And then there's a whole pile of different plots that are in build an underground megavault prison, the graduation at Xavier's X Academy, crown Thor King of Asgard. And some of these stuff is they do really cool things. For example, this one here, cage villains and power suppressing cells. Police will show up and will kidnap your heroes. And then you have to go fight these policemen to get them free, but you can free someone else's heroes and put them in your hand. Again, sticking with the theme of the villains. All right, what you think here?
I thought this game was a lot of fun. It had a lot of feeling, the same thing with the regular game. I think our both favorite card is the Mystique card.
Yeah, it's such a fun card. Well, because I like to see random stuff happen, and that's really fun. And sometimes it worked like you turned a card over and it was like one of the best cards in the game, and then you were just, oh.
One time it was the best card, but you couldn't use it at the time.
Yeah, well, or someone can steal cards from you, and then you like your Mystique card, but someone took it from you. Yeah. So I mean, what do you think about that? Because there's a lot of cards in this game that are like that. Like, there was one card that when you play it, you take 2 cards from your opponent, you say, you draw 2 cards from your deck, good or bad, and then I have to pick one of them, and I get to keep it, she keeps the other one. And, I mean, she stole some of my good cards that way.
Yeah.
What do you think about the, like, stealing from each other and kind of backstabbing a little bit?
Yeah, it actually did feel like you're on the villain side. Like, instead of wounds, it's bindings, and you have to give it to other people if you want to get rid of it. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is, because you're still trying to win. And I think the fewer players, the less this backstabbing stuff will come. Like, when we play a 2-player game, we're not backstabbing each other so much. Sometimes we even help each other. We have to win the game. But the more people you play with, the more this stuff can be really annoying. I personally don't like to play Legendary with more than 4. I think 2 and 3 is actually the coolest way to play it. But I am so excited about mixing all this stuff together. To have Iceman and Magneto and Sabretooth and Wolverine go up against Apocalypse. Age of Apocalypse is back, baby! You know, I mean, just to see all these different cool people fight each other. And so we've played with almost everything in this set. You know, we tried all different combinations. Professor X,
we couldn't beat him.
Yeah. Hate you, Professor X, and your mind control. But we took down Nick Fury, and we took down
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange, yeah, we just slapped him around. But you know what? The thing is, it doesn't really matter. What's cool about this game is you have these commanders and you have the plots. And the combinations, sometimes the plots are really hard, and some of them are hard, not really hard. I'm just excited about it. I love all the cards. My favorite characters, I said, were Bullseye and Mystique. And I also kind of like Juggernaut, but I kind of like Juggernaut just because I like Juggernaut. I used to like Hulk until he's a bad guy. And the X-Men, there's some new special things in this game.
Ones.
Yeah, I mentioned the dodge. But there's also
extreme
power, which means when the X-Men are out, which is mostly X-Men, they're all +1 for each other one that has extreme power out there.
And then we did it with +1 for each captive they had.
Yeah, it was just a bad time.
The minions were stronger than the boss.
Yeah, they were stronger than the boss at that point. Demolish is a new special ability, and that you turn over the top card from the deck, and everybody has to discard a card that's the same number. That doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but if they demolish multiple times and everybody's hands goes down, hate Hulk. And Nick Fury was also demolishing us. But to me, I love this. This is easily one of my favorite games. This is so thematic. I was like, I don't know about the villain side of things. But the fact you can mix them together, I can do any comic book scenario now. And in the future, all the expansions will alternate. You know, there'll be a bad guy expansion, a good guy expansion. But it doesn't matter because I can put them all together into one big set. I also like the new box. Fantastic. Wonderful.
And
Nothing you disliked? All good?
just to set up and take down.
Yeah, it still takes a while to set this up and take it down. But you know what? I don't care because the game is that much fun.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.
There.